Hello Titans, welcome back to a brand new video. This is the one that I said was coming out of the trailer breakdown that I was doing. By the way, check out my Titans Season 4 official teaser trailer breakdown. Also, I go over 3 scene clips that they released, which are pretty awesome, so don't miss out on that. But I said that there was more to come, and that is with all of the interviews, details, plot teasers, character teasers, all kinds of teasers coming out of New York Comic Con, because Brenton Thwaites, Joshua Orpin, Superboy, of course, Ryan Potter's Beastboy, and the showrunner Greg Walker had quite a bit to detail here. So this video is going to have quite a bit of reading in it, but I thought I'd make one dedicated to just dumping everything that we know about Titan Season 4 in one place. And even though it's a bit of a readout and a wordy one, I'm going to get into some discussion. A lot of these details are super interesting, so I don't think you're going to want to miss this one if you're a Titans fan. I'm going to save the Brother Blood Joseph Morgan interview for towards the end of this video. Would really appreciate a like on this video. It really does help. I know I keep asking you to do it, but a thumbs up on your phone, your laptop, or wherever the heck you're watching it does help me out a great deal. And do subscribe for more DC Titans videos just like this. Let's kick off with what Greg Walker, the showrunner, had to say. And he says, as a family, they went through some dark stuff in Season 3, the whole Gotham experience. They exercised a lot of demons, and they launch into what's supposed to be an epic road trip. And they start off with a lot of fun, a lot of family connective, and then he goes on to say they're really into each other. Conflicts among each other have been smoothed out. We start in a good place, but that won't last long. When they go to Metropolis, they've escaped the demons of Gotham, but clearly new demons find them. And the idea was we were gonna get into our RV, everyone else wanted to take the Bruce Wayne jet, so a long journey to head to San Francisco, but they end up getting a call from a certain figure in the DC universe that beckons them to the city of Metropolis. So I was thinking for a split second, considering they were going to San Francisco when we saw them jump in the RV at the finale of last season, does this mean that the call that beckons them to Metropolis isn't necessarily the one we saw with Joshua Orpin's Superboy getting a call from Lex Luthor, or kind of like a frequency hack, if you will, because he says we need to go back to Metropolis in that clip. That's after they've already been Star Labs, after Beast Boy's likely got his suit, after Tim Drake's got his bow stuff, as we see in that clip. So the very call that takes them to Metropolis in the first place, I'm wondering if that could be from Clark Kent, Superman. Please don't take my word for that. I'm just wondering, considering Greg Walker seems to be teasing that they end up getting a call from a certain figure in the DC universe, sure, could be someone from Star Labs, but we do know that a letter is given to Superboy, as I break down in my previous Titans video. Unfortunately, Superman says that he couldn't make it, so he writes him a letter, but maybe he was the one to call him initially, but then it just turns out that something came up, which bums Superboy out, of course. And then, Daddy number 2 rings him, and hey, I'm available. You want to come over to the dark side? So just wanted to chuck in some theory crafting there. But let's talk about what Brenton Thwaites had to say about Dick Grayson in Titan Season 4. So he says that he's more comfortable than past seasons, maybe the most comfortable we've seen him leading the Titans. But like every season, there's a challenge and obstacle that gets thrown his way that he has to struggle and try and get around. In this one, it's trying to be a mentor and a father figure for the Titans like we've seen, but in a different way. In episode 1, Connor Kent mentions that he wants to meet his father, and he tries to set that up. But the father we all know and love wasn't available, so we had to settle for the other father. With that comes a whole set of questions, problems, and challenges that Dick has never faced. Should he let him go? What should he tell him? Everyone deserves to know their parents, but his parent is a bad parent, and how to handle that. So we see that in this season, and that storyline kind of carries throughout the whole season. That battle to try and get Connor to make the right decision for himself is one that I think Dick struggles with the most. Now, I really love that quote there, because we see that Nightwing is going to try and clearly set this up for Connor. Maybe that goes back to the theory crafting I just said. Maybe he gets like a bounce back call and it's from Clark, but again, maybe it doesn't pan out. But as I said, please don't think that's going to happen. It very very well might not. It could just be happening in a different way. The biggest thing I think I was happy about that quote, other than just hearing, the Nightwing improvements and developments in his character arc, is that we heard that this Superboy storyline of this inner conflict, if you will, kind of carries through the whole season. That battle, as Brenton Thwaites goes on to say, to try and get Connor to make the right decision for himself. And again, I mentioned in my breakdown video from a few days ago that Joshua Orpin has very short hair. Now, a couple of people said I think that's to do with wigs. I'm pretty damn confident that Joshua Orpin doesn't wear a wig for his very short Superboy hair, as it always has been. So the fact that he's shaved that off does tell me that maybe we are getting a little bit of a Lex exploration side to his DNA this season, before maybe he makes the full circle trip back to, okay, I've explored all of that, but I'm back in a bit of an equilibrium with my DNA. 50-50 Superman and Lex Luthor. But, of course, it seems that he might go down a little bit of a Lex path, especially as he is the father, or should I say parent, who is around at this time. Now, just before we dive a little bit more into the Superboy stuff, since we were originally on Nightwing, we have some more additional details from an interview with CosmicCircus.com, and the interviewer asks Brenton Thwaites, we've seen you start this series as Robin, then Nightwing, and now you're there on the leader role. Where do you take your character from here? Brenton replies, I'm only not Robin because I don't fit in this suit anymore. The Nightwing suit can take me to 200 kilos. From here, I think that Nightwing, he's not a perfect guy. He's not a perfect superhero. He makes mistakes. He has flaws. He is a character that inherently is trusting his instincts, and sometimes, like everyone, they lead him down the wrong path. And he has to kind of be honest with that and kind of retract and self-right himself. I think from here on out, we'll see Nightwing get more confident in his decisions, more trusting of the people in his team, and approach the situation not from an egotistical point of view, but a best outcome point of view. And I think in the past, he would have kind of just gone out into the night and solved problems by himself, but now he's smart enough to realize that his main strength is his team, which is fantastic to hear. A little bit of an interjection here before we finish that off. Really good to see. I think a lot of people got frustrated even though it was intentional. A perfect example would be when Dick Grayson could have taken Superboy along, but he blew freaking kryptonite dust into his face. Yeah, things like that likely not going to happen now, as per what Brenton Thwaites just teased about Dick realizing that the true strength of him going out there not alone at night just by himself is to bring team members along with him. So thank you. And the interviewer kind of backs that up by saying he doesn't have to do everything by himself. And Brenton Thwaites says, yeah, exactly. He can delegate. And the supernatural is just another element that teaches him. Look, man, you don't know everything about the world. There's things that you don't know about. You need help. Like, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help sometimes. But let's now explore what Joshua Orpin has to say about the Superboy side of things. And he said that he's definitely entering into, I guess you could say, young adulthood. We've seen before he's always struggling with who he is and who he wants to become. Now it's time to make some choices and make some decisions. It's time to really find out who this guy is. So once again there, Joshua Orpin, the actor behind Superboy, just reaffirming that this is going to be a very, and to be honest, one of my most anticipated things, as I've constantly said since season 2, really loved how they laid out the Cadmus Labs scene with all the different back-to-tank-esque looking things, if you will, with Superboy failed clones in there, and, getting into mini Lex Luthor pictures in Lionel Luthor's home. I've been wanting to see that explored even more. I felt very giddy even when I knew that Lex was on the other line of the phone with Mercy Graves. So now seeing that go head first into the next level of Superboy's journey is definitely going to be something to look forward to with Lex Luthor. And speaking of Lex Luthor, Greg Walker kind of reiterated what we've heard before in that interview when we got that first look at Titus Welliver's Lex talking to Starfire. He says that he's going after bigger actors, and in the process, normally there's a bit of a phone call and you usually have to kind of court them, like this old Elizabethan courting session to get them onto the show. But the thing is with Titus, he was expecting to sell him on what they're going to do now, how it's going to be different from other Lexes. And then apparently Titus was like, no, dude, I'm standing right next to my Wolfman Perez collection. And then he starts taking him through all of his comics. And then apparently, Titus Welliver wouldn't stop talking for around 35 minutes about how much he loved Titans, like the show, and watched every single episode, knew everything about the characters, so it was pretty easy to get him. Which, given what I've already seen and what we've seen of Titus Welliver's Lex, which is very small, but as I said, I like how much of a cold presence he already has is already very imposing, and just the energy of Lex that I would want to see on Titans. It's great to hear how much of a fan he is of this DC side of things, but not only just DC, more specifically the show. So he's very familiar with the show going in, and I just feel like that's only going to be, even if it's a small added benefit, a benefit nonetheless to him playing Lex, and I think this is something we need to be really excited about. So now, very quickly, when asking about Lex and what that's going to do to Connor, Joshua Orpin then replied, "Oh yeah, it's going to do things to him. Not only will it be impactful, I would say that it is probably one of the most significant and traumatic experiences of Connor's young life, the first time he meets Lex." So, yep. Cannot wait. Now, when asking Greg what is, the Titans show's version of Metropolis like, Greg Walker says, "It's funny. We shoot the show in Toronto, as everybody knows, and a lot of the early depictions of Metropolis were based off Toronto, so we got lucky that way. So it's a city of glass and steel, a city of light and water. It's ambitious and idealistic. It's not cutthroat, dark, and haunted until forces emerge to show that lurks under the surface. But until then, the Metropolis we show is one where it's directly opposite from Gotham. We are showing the Daily Planet, we have built the Lex Tower where Lex works, and then, for those of you who have already been to the booth, you get a sense of it, but we do build Star Labs. So again, a lot of, if not all of this season is set in Metropolis. I didn't expect the Daily Planet comment at the time, which is awesome, because we've seen it in the background of the Lex Superboy clip that they released. So potentially going, I guess, in there, if that's what he was implying through saying that they're showing the Daily Planet. Maybe it might just be from outside, but we're gonna have to wait and see. But what about Beastboy? We have Ryan Potter say a few things. So he says, "I think we're picking up this year where we've just left off with his mental health and the state of his heart the last 3 seasons. And season 4 really dives into Gar reaching deeper within himself and finding himself through the pain, through the trauma, healing it, but there's work required for that. You have to dive deeper into the pain, you have to question it. We'll see Gar kind of unravel for him to actually find himself. I don't think I understand what's going on with his powers. From the animal kingdom standpoint, Gar is really leaning into different types of animals we're yet to see, transformations we haven't seen before in the previous seasons. We're going to play with that semi-transformation idea a little bit more this season as well. We saw him kind of conjure the tiger paw mid-fight, and we had another idea we wanted to play with. That is another half transformation that we keep, which is awesome to hear. More animals. Again, I wouldn't expect boatloads, possibly 1 or 2 more, I'm thinking. But the mid-transformation stuff is really awesome, like when, as he said, when he conjured the tiger paw. But what could the other one be? Like, could it be freaking wings as he's like in mid-fight, so he'll be in Gar mode, but mid-transformation, he might be able to fly around. I can't really think of what the other mid-transformations could be that would be very, very helpful, but let me know if you know any more in addition to the claw down in the comments. Do you agree it could be wings? All right, so what about DickKory? So Brenton Thwaites gets asked about this on the panel, and he says, "I see it. Look, man, all I can say is Anna is just amazing. I love working with her. She's been by my side since the very first episode. As an actor, she's been by my side, but Corey has been by Dick's side from the very beginning, and we got to see a little bit of that in the first season, and it went away for 2 and 3 because I think story-wise, there was other things going on. Season 4 is the season we realize, what feelings we have for each other, and it starts to flourish again." And he kind of mentions in other interviews across the board that by the end of the season, they kind of actually say that to each other. So they realize it throughout the season by the sounds of it, but by the end, it's actually spoken. So we might get a little bit of build up to that, but the very ending of it is a proper recognition. Now, how about Jinx? So when they spoke to Greg Walker about the new character Jinx this season, they ask where will Jinx fall into the good versus evil spectrum. He says neither one nor the other. She kind of bounces back. She's chaotic neutral. She is an unstable but loyal friend of the Titans. Not unstable mentally, but her allegiances shift depending on the situation and her leverage on the situation. So she's someone who is dynamic, deeply powerful, funny, charming, but you never never know where she's going to land. And Ryan Potter also said that he has some fantastic scenes with Lisa. He says that her comedic chops are to be worshipped. The back and forth between her and I think you guys will really enjoy this season. Wherever the dialogue started, we just asked the camera to go another 50 feet back and let us talk nonsense. And maybe it makes it into the show and maybe it doesn't. That's all I'll say. So that's awesome to hear. I do remember on one of the concept arts for Jinx, it says in the bottom left corner, Hero 3, implying that the Jinx look and suit, if you will, that she's got this season is more of a heroic mode. But again, the overall portrayal will be bouncing from side to side with her allegiances. So I think she's going to be a really interesting character this season, considering that there's such a spectrum to her allegiances, if you will. Now, as for discussion about the villains on the panel, even though we're going to get a little bit more in depth with Joseph Morgan in a separate interview towards the end of this video, we have Brenton say, "We're here at the beginning of the season, episode 1, the first episode you guys will see, with a villain that we don't know anything about, hitting us with powers. As a confident team, we've been firing on all cylinders. We've just worked really well together in Gotham City to defeat Crane, and we're leaving that city and basically starting fresh, feeling good. Nightwing is confident, he succeeded as a mentor and a leader, and we get throttled by this villain who beats us all at our own game. There's a supernatural element to that which Dick Grayson doesn't understand and has to try and figure out who to get into the team to help him understand who it is, what powers they have, and how to defeat them. So he goes and finds Jinx, who knows more about the occult, supernatural, and magic. She helps him and the Titans figure out who it is. Now, this is where Greg Walker says, "I'll say this about this, I'm super proud. Our show goes into the dark and horror and occult this year. Never done that before. And so we go into elements of magic because we're in the world of Brother Blood and Mother Mayhem." And that's when the interviewer on the panel says, "I feel like they're going to need more than Jinx." And Greg Walker replies, "That's true. They do." So that more or less just reiterates somewhat of what we already know. We got that clip as well of Mother Mayhem absolutely blasting the Titans. This is around the time in the panel when they actually show that clip of what Brenton Thwaites was just explaining. So yeah, that's when they go to Jinx, get a bit more education from her about what the heck's going on here. We're going to see maybe a little bit of the side to Jinx that was just teased by the showrunner, and they're going to have to navigate their way from there on out. But what about returning characters? This one had me very intrigued. Greg Walker said, "We would love to see some characters come back, and there are a few from the past who emerged this season from the catacombs of Titans history and they show back up." So who the heck is that? I mean, I know that Jason Todd is most definitely coming back. There's been a few teasers surrounding Jay Lycargo and Curran working out. We've been over that in previous videos, and it's fairly obvious that he's going to come back from maybe like a special guesty kind of episode. I don't think he's going to be in it for too long. But who else? Because I don't think, or didn't think, that Donna would show up again this season. But who knows? I don't think Minka Kelly will. But again, I wouldn't count on it being Hank, possibly Rose or Jericho, but again, let me know your speculation, because right now, really, I'm not too sure who's going to get involved from the previous seasons. Alright, so just before we get to the Joseph Morgan interview, there is some details about Tim Drake that wasn't on the panel and is actually a part of that CosmicCircus.com interview with Brenton Thwaites. And the interviewer asks, is there anything you can kind of tease about the relationship between Tim and Dick this season, like him training and Robin? And Brenton Thwaites goes on to say, yeah, so, you know, at the end of season 3, Dick says, jump on it, you know? Come with us. I'll train you up to be a Titan. And Tim jumps into the RV, super excited to become a Titan. He thinks it's going to happen tomorrow. But what happens is Dick needs him to see how we operate and to feel instinctively how we make decisions as a team and how we fight crime as a team and how we operate as a team. And I think that is a big obstacle for Tim. He has to learn to be patient and, you know, when his time is ready, when his time comes. So now, yeah, he'll be ready. But until that time, you're not ready. And I think for him, it's frustrating because he wants to fight crime. He feels ready. He feels like super eager to get out there and do his thing. But Dick knows that can kill him. You know, there's severe consequences. We've seen what happened with Jason Todd, with Red Hood last season when that happened. So Dick doesn't want to make the same mistake. He doesn't want him to go down a path that he couldn't return from, which is a nice play on learning the lessons from the father, if you will, even though I don't think what happened to Jason is specifically Bruce Wayne's fault, but he's seen what happened to Bruce Wayne's other Robin, Jason Todd. Now, Nightwing has this responsibility with a new Robin in the works. He doesn't want him to dive into the deep end because he could die like Jason Todd. And with Jason Todd, that very thing of somewhat trying to hold them back is what spurred Jason on to go out there and get crowbarred by the Joker. Except I think Tim will listen to Dick a bit more. Even when he's holding him back deliberately, I don't think he would run out there and try and get himself killed to try and prove himself. So really looking forward to Jay Larcargo's Robin journey this season, and I do really think we will get that suit towards the back end. As I said in my previous breakdown video, possibly episodes 7 to 10, but we're gonna have to wait and see. So let's now dive into the Den of Geek interview with Joseph Morgan talking about Brother Blood. So initially they said, we caught up with Morgan about what it was like stepping into the shoes of Brother Blood and what his arrival means for the Titans and the future of the series. Now, what I like so much about this interview is it talks about Joseph's perspective on Sebastian, his place in the world, what kind of furthers him on in that journey. So if you're all about those kind of details, this interview is exactly for you. So they ask, were comic books and DC something you already had a connection with before becoming involved with Titans? He says, oh yeah, absolutely. My granny used to work in a charity shop and she got a load of Spider-Man comics given to the charity shop there. The earliest memory I've got is of receiving this huge box and just plowing through them all. I grew up watching the old Batman series with Adam West and Burt Ward. Batman was my favorite, but I really always enjoyed the villains, weirdly enough. I made a career of that, haven't I? I've always been fascinated with villains, especially the Joker. These sort of psychologically complex villains, as a lot of these villains tend to be. Then I've read graphic novels all my life, not just the superhero ones. Den of Geek then asks, for fans who don't know who Sebastian Blood or Brother Blood is, how would you describe him? He's someone who initially is quite introverted, who's never quite found his place in the world. He's not able to formulate meaningful relationships. He feels like something isn't right in his life and in the world. He's right about that because there is a sort of greater destiny in store for him, which he becomes aware of and gets swept along on this path. Then gradually, he starts to take control of it. It's really a journey of the ego. He's a guy who starts off with these big dreams, wanting to change the world, and as that starts to actually happen for him, the ego takes over, which is something we've really dived quite deep into on previous breakdowns on the channel with Joseph Morgan's previous teasers. You see the Sebastian side of him like you're seeing on screen, one of whom I've kind of talked about being a little bit of a comparison to the Arthur Fleck journey, complete polar opposites in a way, to the kind of shy, timid, esque Arthur Fleck we got at the beginning of the film to the one on the Murray Franklin talk show. So I think just with Arthur, with what happens to him, albeit in a little bit of a different way here, obviously this isn't a direct comparison, his ego is very fueled by that point of the film. So with the journey and destination that Sebastian will arrive at with the Church of Blood helping him ascend to Brother Blood, that ego will probably really take over, especially fueled by his previous life and the way he was living and the way, I guess, society, you know, without the society memes here, but truly, as Joseph Morgan described, never quite found his place in the world, never really been able to form meaningful relationships. And funnily enough, he actually goes on to talk about Joker here as well. So when Den of Geek asked what kind of preparation do you do to embody a character like Brother Blood, he said, first of all, I found the things I wanted to latch onto with him. What do I know about this guy? For me, it really started with, okay, well, where's he from? Do I make him British or American? I had a long chat with Greg Walker, Titans' showrunner, about that. We decided to make him British because I felt it gives him even more of a feeling of being an outsider. I looked a bit at Joaquin Phoenix and Joker, of course, but he was a little bit more disenfranchised. There was a little more edge to him from the beginning. I felt like my character was a little more like Norman Bates, very sweet and tender. I was thinking about playing Sebastian more edgy with a little more of that anger of being rejected by society. But my wife said, maybe you should go more in the direction of him being sweet, innocent, and nice, because it will give you a bigger arc to travel, and it will give you a more interesting journey. She was right. Once again, without repeating myself so much from previous videos, that's something I'm so excited for with this villain. Obviously, not only the casting and Joseph Morgan, whose acting chops are just sky high, but on a real note here, the villains that we can somewhat empathize with and sympathize with, obviously up until a certain point here with when he becomes Brother Blood, he's gonna do things that we're just like, dude. But understanding, even like kind of Arthur Fleck, it allows the audience to connect to the character in a way that makes it so much more impactful on the viewing experience. As I always say, a villain who's just kind of like, hey, I'm going to rule the world, screw you. There's not really much backstory behind me other than wanting to just be evil for evil's sake. It can be fun sometimes in certain movies or shows, but when you pad it out in the way that's being described here, then that makes for a recipe for success, I'm telling you. Den of Geek then asks, what makes him the perfect foe for the Titans? And he says, for some of the Titans, certainly one of the Titans, just interjecting here, likely Raven, there's a big connection. So immediately, it's building a dilemma. By the time you get halfway through the season, we've spent time together. We're on a first name basis. It's not Brother Blood, Nightwing and Raven, it's Sebastian, Dick, and Rachel. What I try to do is maintain his humanity, just as the ego is slightly visible in the cracks at the beginning. At the end, the humanity is still there, and the person he was still bleeds through. Now that is very interesting to me. This is why I said in my previous breakdown, because of this comment here, I'm wondering if he works at Star Labs. That's why he describes it as working a dead-end job. Maybe he's not high up in Star Labs, dreaming one day of changing the world, which maybe is why he joined Star Labs, with the possible job prospects and opportunities you could have at frickin' Star Labs, of course, but it didn't really pan out for him. So that's why maybe when the Titans go to Star Labs, he's on a first name basis with them. Sebastian knows DickKory, Rachel, and, other Titans possibly. So that is a really interesting foundation to the connection with the Titans and Brother Blood, the villain of Titans Season 4, considering the fact that they seemingly, even if I'm wrong about the Star Labs theory, know him on a first name basis before they actually truly fight him as Brother Blood. Den of Geek then asks, is there a moment you're most excited for fans to see or experience in Sebastian's story? He replies, oh man, there's a bunch, but there's a pretty iconic moment at the beginning of episode 8 that Greg and I fought for because it was expensive, but we were both really keen for it to be a part of the show. I feel like fans of the comics and the animated series will look at it and go, oh yeah, and for me, it took some guts to do, but I'm glad I did it because I feel like it's one of those staple moments where it's like, he's arrived. This is the guy. And that makes me really intrigued because I was thinking that maybe the Brother Blood ascending kind of crowning moment could be when the episode's cut off in episode 6, which is when we go on break and then we get a final 6 episodes in 2023. But given what he's saying there, I am wondering, and to be honest, I have no idea with regards to what he's saying. It took some guts for me to do, but I'm glad I did it because it feels like one of those staple moments where it's like, he's arrived, this is the guy. That could be the moment in the blood pit, but truly kind of like a baptism, if you will. He has been truly, truly donned Brother Blood. He is ascended. He will rise. Maybe that is a moment where Joseph Morgan rises out. But the fact that he says it's expensive, that's obviously not so much of a simple, hey, let's just get a pit of fake blood and then walking out. So what do you think it is that was really expensive that the showrunner and Joseph Morgan had to fight for and took quite a bit of guts for him to do? I would love to know your ideas, but I do think it has something to do with the whole, as he said, staple moments. He's arrived. This is the guy. So, yeah. I'm very intrigued. And that ends the Brother Blood discussion there. I loved that. I'm glad that Joseph Morgan did an interview where he gets a little bit more into the gritty details of things and teasing us for what's to come. But how about a season 5? We get some obscure comment here from Greg Walker, and it is kind of like, again, not blowing smoke up my own arse, I'm just saying it is what I've been feeling in my gut anyway. So as for a 5th season, with the press interviews, they say, any plans for a 5th season that you can talk about? And Greg Walker replies, just prayers. We really want one. We really feel like there's a lot of dry power left. I feel like we shoot out of this season with a lot of finale, but also a chance for a future. So that right there, that the keywords being shooting out of this season with a lot of finale, but also a chance for a future, is what I've been saying about Doom Patrol and Titans. It makes sense to me with kind of questions, okay, are they going to be renewed? That they might low-key prepare a place for the end of both seasons of Doom Patrol and Titans where certain characters meet some satisfying full circle arc. So you could arguably leave it off there if it doesn't get renewed, and even in our headcanon we know that, oh, these characters are going on to do this. But that doesn't close the book fully. I mean, it could be closed if it's out of their control and HBO Max doesn't renew them, Warner Brothers Discovery and whatnot. But there are obviously more stories and blank pages to fill in. Like, they could renew it, and it's like, oh, even though we did that somewhat finale feeling-esque story in the 4th season, it doesn't mean that, okay, season 5, episode 1, new adventure to go on. So we're just gonna have to wait and see, but it is still nice to know that with Doom Patrol and Titans, it does feel as though that fans aren't going to feel completely like that the story is unresolved in so many ways, just in case the show doesn't get that 5th season. But I'm still hoping for a 5th season. I think if we do get a 5th season for both shows, it could be a 5th and final season. But that just about wraps up this video, guys. I've been going on for a while. I hope that this Titan Season 4 information dump has tided you over well, and also provided you enough context from the actors and showrunner to give you a lot of theories. So I will most definitely be reading all of your comments down in the comments below, as I always do, but this one in particular, because there is a lot to discuss. I'll see you guys down in that comment section. Please like the video if you got this far. Maybe even consider sharing it on Twitter or other social media that you might use. That also helps support the video and help it grow a little bit more in the algorithm. Links, as always, are in the description down below if you want to follow me on Twitter, Discord server, and things like that. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Titans in the next video. Goodbye.